Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we proudly present our spectacular show of podcast magic and imagination full of Disney wonder, news, and pop culture. It's the Main Street Electrical Podcast with Jenn Dave and David Dollar.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, Dave.
It's the Main Street Electrical Podcast. I am Dave here with Jen, and the Force is with Jen because
yes, it is.
I'm assuming when I say, how did you Disney this week, your answer is going to be, well, tomorrow.
Yes.
Or actually now, when you're listening to this episode.
Yes, actually, as of the day everybody is listening to this episode, I am boarding the Galactic Star Cruiser. I have Disneyed this week by getting my outfits together because, of course, I'm dressing up.
Of course.
I don't know why you would think otherwise, so that's fine.
Fun times. What do you? I mean, do you have any particular character, or are you just dressing up in Star Wars like?
Just like Star Wars-ish. Yeah, I'm not like bounding as a specific character. Slightly R2-D2 inspired colors. I see like that. With my nails, like with the blue and the silver and white. So like everything I'm wearing is like those tones that are in R2-D2.
Right.
But yeah, but more just like Star Wars-y ish. Brady is like a little Han Solo-ish, so we're gonna go with it.
Is Brady gonna put on the gold bikini, because that would be awesome?
He is not planning on doing the gold bikini.
Okay, just asking, just wondering. I mean, it might fit him well. I mean, with the cape in the back and everything. Just
no, he wasn't planning on it. So
I have a feeling they're not going to allow that on the Galactic Star Cruiser.
I kind of don't blame them. So
that's really funny. Well, that's really awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Of course, next week's episode, folks, here's a primer. Next week's episode will be the Galactic Star Cruiser. We'll be talking all about that, which is going to be awesome. Yeah. For me, Jen, I ordered myself an Epcot shirt from Park Candy, and it is a the entire thing is the Epcot the spheres, the design of Epcot, basically the Squishy Earth,
or
Geodome, yeah. The whole thing is just that shirt, and I'm so excited.
That's awesome.
Now it's pre-ordered. It's not going to get here for another couple of weeks, so I won't be able to wear it in March. But I probably will try to debut it in October when we all go down, because it just looks like a cool shirt. It looks like a really cool shirt. Steph and I, of course, are going to be debuting our contemporary shirts when we go in March. I'm going to be wearing mine. Hopefully, it's going to be warm enough that she'll be able to wear her little sundress with the contemporary sundress, which we're real excited about. So that's exciting. So yeah, we're just getting ready for March, which is exciting. So
that's awesome.
Very, very fun. Very cool. The parks are crowded as crap right now. Absolutely crowded.
Yes,
I'm sure you're gonna have fun with that, because there's just so many people in the park.
It's okay. You know what? It's okay, because I'm gonna be there, and it's Flower and Garden,
and that's the main thing. Not a whole lot of news this week, but I do want to mention this headline that I saw on a website here. Iridescent flowers debuting at the 2022 Flower and Garden Fest for Walt Disney World's 50th
Wait, iridescent flowers? I don't think
iridescent flowers. There's a cast member on video showing topiaries for this year's festival with pink iridescent flowers debuting at the festival. Of course, this festival is now starting. It's actually starting tomorrow, or I guess will be when you're there. Are you going to Epcot? Are you hitting all 4 parks, or just it's a quick trip down, a quick trip back? How's that working for you?
We are not hitting all 4. So, I mean, obviously the first 2 days, the 3rd and the 4th are the Star Cruiser. We check out the morning and the 5th. I mean, really, other than breakfast, there's nothing there. Then we check into the boardwalk. And so then we're planning to do a lot of Flower and Garden, and of course, Magic Kingdom. Like, we cannot go down to the park. So we're probably not going to hit Animal Kingdom this trip, which is fine. We have to see Epcot. That's my favorite.
All right, so let me ask you this question. I've been asked this question a couple of times by clients who called me, and they want to go for just 1 or 2 days, and they're asking, what parks should we go to? Now, obviously, that answer is dependent on so many factors: what time of year you're going, your family dynamic, what do you enjoy, that kind of thing. But as a general question, and I'm gonna put you on the spot, Jen. Flower and Garden, let's just say it's April. The weather is nice. It's not maybe hot, but it's not, cool. It's kind of somewhere in the middle, 70s, whatever. The weather's nice. You have a couple. You have a younger couple in their 20s, maybe early 30s, and they're saying, what 2 parks should we go to? Jen, what are you recommending?
Honestly, a lot of it depends on the couple, though, because I'm going to ask them a couple of other questions, and I'm going to okay, well, what do you like? Because I do have couples where I'd be like, all right, probably based on what you're telling me, you need to hit Epcot and you need to hit Animal Kingdom, maybe, because I do know some people that is literally their favorite park. That is a must for them. In other cases, I'm going to recommend Epcot and Hollywood Studios. You're noticing a theme. Epcot is basically
yeah.
always one of the two I recommend.
Does it kind of break your heart, maybe pierce your heart just a little bit to hear families go, yeah, we're not going to Epcot because there's nothing for the kids there? I'm just like, that hurts me. Why would you say that?
I'm like, there is stuff for kids. I mean,
so it's
granted, adults love it, but
we need to do an episode on kids stuff. Like, we need to actually have on the Disney moms again, maybe Kyla and Kelly and Heather or whatever, and talk about each park and what they do for the kids, what things are happening for kids. If you have children, what can you find? Small children or whatever. Because my first thing now is thinking of KidCot at Epcot. And a lot of people don't even know KidCot exists, and that's something where you go to every single pavilion has something for the kids. You go there and a little passport, you get little stickers, you little activity and things like that. Right. And they've also got do they still have the Perry's the adventure? The
Perry's World Showcase event. They have not been doing that. Okay. That I know of. For a while, apparently there was an app maybe in the Play Disney. I'm not sure if there's a piece of Play Disney, but they're not doing the stations. Like they used to give you cell phones and you would go around.
Right.
I think, so there you go.
I said that I wasn't going to do any news, but I do want to throw this out here real quick, and just a couple things here. Why not? Of course, Anna and Elsa are back in Epcot, so you get to meet them again. The Royal Summer House. They're meeting again.
Thank goodness.
So, which is really exciting. That kind of happened a couple of days ago. I think again, the Bob listens to this. Josh listens to the show, and like when our show is done, they're like, "Hey, let's go ahead and announce some news now that the show is done recording." I think that happens every week.
I'm pretty sure that's what happens. It's annoying, but what are you gonna do?
Genie Plus also has made some changes now. Now, of course, with Genie Plus, every park had two attractions that you had to pay access for. The individual attraction selection, the individual lightning lane. I don't know what they're calling it now. This whatever, you got to pay for it. It's extra pay. You pay for it. It's not in the Genie Plus. It's not a lightning lane. You have to pay for access to it. And before it was 2 per park. Now it's just 1 per park because now Space Mountain has moved into the Genie Plus lineup. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway has now moved into the Lightning Lane lineup for Genie Plus. And of course, over at Epcot, Frozen Ever After has moved into that lineup as well. So now this is 1 per park. Now Everest is the one that would be outstanding. It would make sense to move into that lineup for Animal Kingdom, but it's under refurbishment, so it doesn't matter.
I agree with this decision. I actually agree with this decision forever. I think it needs to not go back to that.
And I think it will stay that way. I think maybe they might move Mickey Minnie back, but honestly,
I could see an argument for.
Because this is supposed to be through August the 7th. By then, of course, Guardians will be reopened, and it'll be Guardians.
And that one, I'm sure,
that'll be those two. And honestly, I can see it by the end of the year where Remy moves into the.
I was about to say, I do think eventually that one's going to go regular.
Yep.
Genie Plus. Yep. And I can see it like the brand new attractions. Absolutely. Because those are going to be in demand. The passes will go out really quickly. I'm just saying passes because I don't know if I can. I just have the hardest time. Terminology.
Well, I would say too, if you're not a Guardians of the Galaxy fan, summer's a great time for you to go to Epcot because all the focus will be there.
Everybody will be in that line. You can go do whatever you want.
Everything, which will be awesome. But yeah, Genie Plus is one of those. It's a love-hate relationship with Genie Plus because I love it. I love the concept. I love what it does, and I get you got to pay extra for it. And I often have thought that eventually Disney would go to a paid Fastpass system, and they did.
Oh yeah, we've said that.
I think honestly, and maybe you'll agree with me, maybe you won't here, but I think that if the system worked all the time, because there are so many glitches right now, if it worked all the time, I don't think we would have this much negativity about it.
I agree.
I think because people are having to revamp and reschedule and redo some things in the morning because things aren't working correctly, whatever.
And I think because things were going out so quickly during busy times. Right. Like even with Fast Passes, that really wasn't a concern. Do you know what I mean? Like the popular ones were gone, but there were still plenty that you could have had during the day. So I think some of this is growing pains and just I'm hopeful. Like, and I know they are asking for feedback. I mean, surveys are asking for feedback, everything else. So I'm hopeful, but it'll.
Right.
And let's just remind people, Fastpass was a disaster at first.
No, I was going to say Fastpass Plus, it took about 2 years for it to really even out.
And then people loved it.
And it went over $1 billion. It was over $1 billion over budget. People were fired over it, but I don't want to say poorly. There's a lot of things that went wrong with it when they rolled it out. Whether this is going to be like that or not, I have no idea. I think the system will evolve and will change. I'm hoping it doesn't go up in price anytime soon until they get it all worked out because I don't want this. Like Disneyland is $20 a person per day.
Right. But that also includes their photos. Unlike
that is true.
That does include their photos for the day.
That's true. But I also see, I can foresee promotions now where Disney will say if you book these dates, this promotion, whatever, blah blah blah, we give you Genie Plus free with your tickets, with ticket with purchase. I can totally see being a promo tool.
Who knows?
Genie Plus are free, and so I can see, like, it's the new free dining. It's free Genie Plus. No, free dining is not back right now. Don't ask about it.
No, there's really no dining plan. So literally, like,
no, I get asked.
we don't
I
have
get asked
that
every single day. Every day I get asked about.
There's no dining plan.
Yeah, it might come back. We're hoping it will.
Well, they said it will come back.
It's a cash cow for Disney. They want it to come back. Okay, so last question before we get to the main stuff here. Why do you have a theory as to why dining plan is not back yet? Do you know what they're holding off on?
I don't know what it is, but my guess would be with just I'm guessing they're back up to 100% capacity in the restaurants, but I might be incorrect. Okay. However, I don't know that they're staffing. I feel like in some cases the staffing isn't back up to 100%.
I think it's a staffing thing.
I really think it's a staffing thing versus and they don't want people paying for a service they cannot deliver on.
Right, and they can't fulfill either because there are several places that aren't character meals. Again, Crystal Palace still doesn't have characters again. All the princesses are not back at Cinderella's Royal Table.
So until those things are back, yeah.
Well, and now I'm wondering, and this is not to go political at all, but now I'm wondering, with the restrictions being lifted, I think my personal belief is that the mask mandate on transportation will lift in March. I think it will be, you go to buses.
I think that probably will
lift for various reasons. Then I'm wondering, will they go back to characters coming to the tables? And if that's the case, they can put more tables in restaurants. Because right now they're widened by like 5 or 6 or 7 feet, which the characters can walk through, which is a safety thing too. Or are they going to stick with that, saying, you know what, we like how this works. It keeps the characters safer, blah, blah, blah. They're not having to come to the tables. But if they come to the tables, that means more tables. That means more people. That means more revenue. That means more, and so now I'm wondering if that's...
that might be a catch-22 there. So it'll be interesting to see which way they go with it.
Right. Very, very true. So we haven't done this in a very long time. But I'm excited to come back to it because there's a couple of things that we definitely have been wanting to talk about forever. We just couldn't figure out how to put it in there. And this is called Disney Did You Know? And we've each selected 2 stories from Disney history covering Disney whatever, parks and movies or whatever we want to cover to talk about. Because we're guessing that people either don't know the story or they don't know the real story, which is one of mine that I'm really excited to talk about. But Jen, I'm going to let you go first and just kind of give us a Disney Did You Know?
Well, this is a did you know about, so quasi-producer Heather's daughter, Kylie, is a huge Splash Mountain fan. Like, she is probably the number one fan of that attraction. And so this one is actually inspired by her. The Splash Mountain that we all know currently, of course, Brer Fox, Brer Bear, it's got all the animatronics in it. But did you know that those animatronics, at least in Disneyland, used to be part of another attraction?
Interesting.
And that attraction was called America Sings. So this is, I want to say Disney buffs probably know this, but might not know the full amount behind it. Because honestly, riding through Splash Mountain as it currently is, you would have no idea. The characters look like they were made for that attraction. I mean, literally, it's not like, oh, that looks a little bit off, like the chickens in Buzz Lightyear, which that's like a little whole other thing there. Like, why are there chickens? There's a reason behind it. Maybe I'll do that on a different day. But in the, it was called the Carousel Theater, which used to house the Carousel of Progress, of course, from the 64 World's Fair. Disney moved that over to Florida because it wasn't really getting traction out in California anymore. They moved that to its new home in Florida. And that Carousel Theater then was standing empty. However, it was almost time for the bicentennial. The bicentennial, of course, 1976. So they created, it was called America Sings. And again, it did rotate. Okay. So you, just like Carousel of Progress, you have the 6 theaters, you had the 6 different scenes. So you had one with, it was called Sam the Eagle. No, not the Muppet. Just his name was Sam and he was an eagle, but not the Muppet Sam the Eagle. And he was, in his red, white, and blue top hat and cute little things. He was voiced by Burl Ives, interestingly enough. Yes. Yep. So he had a sidekick named Ollie. And so he was.
Now, was he giving a 3.5-hour finale, but mostly about all countries, but mostly about America?
No, it wasn't quite that. More like a 20-minute performance.
Okay, gotcha. All right,
yeah. Not quite as into it as Muppet 3D. Yes. But one of the things that was interesting, they would sing like Yankee Doodle, Polly Wolly Doodle, like in the different things, songs of America.
Of course.
And so the Gators, the 3 Gators, the ones playing a banjo, the ones playing accordion. Right. Okay. They were part of that attraction, as well as the little raccoon, like playing the harmonica, who he does, like, it's in the "How do you do" scene as you're going through. You can see a lot of these.
Right.
There were 4 geese, a quartet of geese that would sing like Dixie, Little Liza Jane, some of those American folk songs. 3 of those geese made it into Splash Mountain in Disneyland. One of them went to Star Tours as a robot.
Interesting.
So
that was some interesting contract negotiations.
Right. I'm not sure. Like, which of these geese is going? I'm not sure how. Like,
Cheryl. Don't ask, Bonnie. Don't ask.
Literally. There were so some of them were called the Swamp Boys. Okay, there were 3 frogs. Those frogs with the little hats. As you're going through Splash Mountain. Yeah.
No,
they were singing down by the riverside.
Calling them out. That's really fun. So.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's interesting. I call them the revival chickens.
Of course, right.
They were in America Sings. Right. Again, the geese were singing "I've Been Working on the Railroad." Some were doing like "Drill Ye Terriers Drill," and you might not know some of these, but I was a music teacher, so I taught a bunch of American folk songs. I know all of them.
Right.
Yeah, but they had like the dancing chickens, the whole thing, and it just went around. Absolutely, the 6 scenes. And they sang and they quote danced and they had all of these cute little characters doing things. And then eventually, had a big finale with Yankee Doodle and everybody sings Auld Lang Syne on the way out.
Right.
And so this debuted in 1974. Okay. This debuted in 74. It ran until 88. By the end, it was one of those attractions that people weren't going to anymore. So, and then it just became a shuttered attraction until they eventually revamped it. Well, of course, in 1989. Is when Splash Mountain opened. Well, apparently, and there's like conflicting stuff on this. Mark Davis designed, of course, Splash Mountain. He also had a big hand in America Sings. And so that's why it's kind of cohesive. It was easy to move those characters over and apparently sort of part of the plan anyway. They knew that one was closing. They knew they could repurpose them. Any of the ones that didn't fit quite as well in are in that end river showboat scene.
Right.
Yeah. Because the revival chickens, that's really the only place you could put those in. So then, of course, Walt Disney World was patterned after that. The other reason that they wanted to build Splash Mountain in the first place, and that it was interesting, they were having a hard time getting people over to Critter Country. So with the whole, and bear, that was the whole thing with the bears. Like, okay, well, how do we fit this in? Oh, well, we have this whole movie that, for better, probably for worse. Right. And, in the late 80s, like, we can use this movie, with all of these characters, and we can get, another weenie ride basically to get people in the doors. So that is why that all happened and why it's cohesive. And I just thought it's kind of fascinating that America Sings, and it is crazy. You look at these and you're like, wait, no, like with the hats and everything.
I like it
perfectly.
I love it. I personally love it when Disney reuses stuff.
Yeah.
Like move things around. Like if you go to Monsters Inc., the ride at Disneyland, you see cutouts and see things that were in the Superstar Limo attraction, which is one of the 2 or 3 most reviled attractions in Disney history. People hated that ride.
Hated it.
And yet they took like the paparazzi cutouts and stand-ups and turned them into like monsters and stuff that are in there. It's really, really funny. You can see kind of some behind the scenes. I love that. So my first one, I'm going to take you all the way back to Disneyland 1957.
Ooh.
When the Autopia attraction in Tomorrowland was very popular. Walt decided he wanted a junior Autopia in Fantasyland to keep up with demand because all the families were going Autopia. He's like, well, let's do something separate. So to accommodate young children, he had some cars. The seats were higher, had gas pedals that were a little bit bigger, a guide track, basically the same experience as the original Autopia, and he called it Midget Autopia. For the smallest Disneyland gifts who could not steer or operate the gas pedal. Now, of course, you don't really want to use the word midget, but in 1957, it just meant small. So when they said midget, it just meant small. It didn't mean like people or anything.
No,
like
it wasn't.
So they opened it up near Storybook Land canal boats. Walt had proposed he wanted a creation of a Mousecatopia area in Disneyland devoted to just the youngest children, to have a helicopter ride, a boat ride, and a car ride. But then he realized that would separate families, so he decided not to go ahead with that because he wanted families to stay together. But he also went ahead with the smaller Autopia because the demand was just huge. So no adults were allowed on Midget Autopia. It was more like a cartoon experience than driving because it was basically like an off-the-shelf amusement park ride. The cars had like looked like Pontiacs and Chevrolets and whatever. And so they were smaller, they were rounder, they ran on electricity on a bar track. So basically, kind of on a little rural road. Can't even say that word. The route wasn't a freeway theme, but it was like a rural road, like gentle and everything. Went over a small hill through a tunnel and through a little garage barn. The door swung open as you go through. And Bob Gurr in 1997 said, he's a famous Imagineer, said it was a simple 4-wheel dark ride. They had been building and selling these cars to other parks for years, and these were not Autopia cars in the sense that guests could drive or control them. The midget Autopia ride was a kiddie ride with the same technology that we use in all dark rides. 2 steering wheels, so each passenger had access to one. The kids can both do the steering wheel, so one can pretend like they're in Britain or they're in London. The wheels were not connected to anything. You opened it during peak hours, during summer holidays and weekends. Eventually, they dismantled it in 1966. They donated the whole thing to Walt's hometown of Marceline, Missouri, where it was there in Walt Disney Municipal Park for 11 years until maintenance and insurance created challenges, and they decided to close it for good. So
and
I just think that's
seen
kind of
one of those cars.
Oh, have you? That's really awesome.
I went to Marceline a couple years ago, and we went to the Family Museum, and they do have those little midget Autopia cars. Yeah.
As you I am totes jelly by that admission because I love that. I think that would be really, really cool. But I didn't even know that existed. Midget Autopia. I don't know. Again, that just would not fly nowadays. But Midget Autopia. It's something for the.
It is a
kids.
Piece of history, and the cars were adorable.
So I'm actually looking up the cars now on the Googles, and they're really cute.
They're just adorable.
Yeah, they had headlights from like Chevrolets, Pontiacs, and stuff. They actually had parts and everything from the bigger cars and stuff. So very cool. So that's my Midget Autopia story. Jen, what is your second?
My second story, and I just always think that this is interesting. And quite honestly, if I hadn't been down right after they revamped Disney Springs, I was down there for one of the events, and they actually talked us through about Disney Springs and the whole storyline behind it. And I think, everything in Disney, I know that everything in Disney has a story, but sometimes it's not always, I don't know, super in front of your face. So, because it was Pleasure Island, which, is kind of after the whole Pinocchio thing. And then it was just downtown Disney, it was just a shopping area, but they really wanted to bring that more into a storyline. So Disney Springs was born. The story is inspired by the small Florida towns that developed in the 1900s. Because that really is, how Florida developed. There's a ton of waterways and beautiful natural springs. There's like Tarpon Springs. There's a whole bunch of things around there. So what their whole thing was that settlers discovered a natural spring and a piece of land, and they built a town center where the residents would live. So of course, town center, that's where you have all of your shops, etc. They even built a waterside promenade where they could relax after a busy day. But as the population grew, it expanded out. And that's why you have things like the Landing so like all of those other sections. So each neighborhood has a specific function and time period when it was developed. So the town center, that's like the Flagler era. You've heard of like Flagler Beach, and Henry Flagler was a big part. Okay. So that's his era, quote unquote. So that's why it looks a lot like St. Augustine in Miami architecturally, and like the Spanish tiled roofs. Then the west side, remnants of a train trestle from the fictional 1950s Centennial Expo. Okay. So that's where the train trestle, that raised thing comes in. Also, Deluxe Burger figures into that. There is a whole backstory, even like Deluxe Burger. Actually, all of the restaurants, for the most part, have at least a small nod to the theme. So speaking of, a cattle rancher named Martin Sinclair and his wife, Clara, who had discovered the water source, he became the cattle king. And then they opened up Deluxe Burger, basically like a restaurant. So that's how that sort of fits in. So if you look inside, you see older pictures of Disney Springs, and just so many nods to it in there. It would take forever if I recounted literally the whole thing. I found this. This is an article by Jim Corcus, and he's a great Disney historian.
I'm trying to get him on the show. That's a hard sell. We're trying.
He is fantastic. So eventually, Sinclair became not just a beef cattle dealer. He attended the World's Fair. He developed the hamburger. So again, Deluxe Burger. And then Disney Springs also has a Blaze Pizza, which I'm like, how on earth are you tying in Blaze Pizza? Like, this is not, has nothing to do with cattle. This has nothing to do with ranching.
Right. Right.
But it used to be the lumber mill. And so if you look inside that particular building, it looks like an old lumber mill. So that's where that came from.
I love it.
And, there's a few other things, but the other one I wanted to point out is Maria and Enzo's, because that's on, yet another section of Disney Springs. And that portion, the story about that is it looks like an old airline hangar, because the people who opened that restaurant were people from Italy. And he used to be a pilot. So he was drawn to this abandoned airline hangar, like nobody had used it in years, converted it into a restaurant. If you walk through, it is all about aviation.
Right.
And Maria also started as just doing like little pizza out of a window, which is why you have Pizza Ponte, which is part of Maria and Enzo's. So I just think that it is interesting how they've tied all of these storylines together to this fictional town, of Disney Springs.
Can you imagine being in that room where they're coming up with a story and one guy's like, okay, so Maria, all right, so what if we do like an old warehouse, like a factory, and somebody else is like, no. How about like a boat? No, airplane hangar. That's it. Let's do it with that. Okay, who's she with? I had an uncle named Enzo. He loved it. Enzo's perfect. Let's go with that. I mean, I could like a whiteboarding session. There's like names all over the place. And originally, it was going to be called like Guadalupe and Giuseppe's or something, whatever. And just I love that. I love that.
Yeah. It's just so interesting. And then there's like the hideaway portion too was inspired by like that 20s speakeasy style, which is why it's the hideaway. So again, it's incorporating a lot of history from like 1850s through like the 1950s and how the town has developed and changed. So
I love the storytelling. That's one thing I do miss about some things at Disney is the storytelling aspect, because I know that attraction wise, we haven't really opened an attraction that's original storytelling basically since Everest, when we had that original ride open with the story and Soarin' and that whole thing, because it's all been IP, which is great. We're loving the IP rides, but I would love for them to open an attraction going, here's a brand new character, his name is blah blah blah, his name is Bubby, and he is whatever, and this is I would love that, and so that would be great.
I would love that as well, but
that would be cool. So I love it.
It's so interesting. So
very cool. So my final one here, and this is a story I've been wanting to tell for a while because I love this story. So I'm going to set this up, and you're going to have to go with me here because I'm not coming to the Disney part of it till towards the end, but you'll see how it all comes around. So we're going to take you all the way back to 2004. Okay. NFL football. CBS, they have the rights to AFC. Fox has the rights to NFC games. ABC had Monday night, and ESPN had Sunday night games. So there's Disney, of course, owning ABC and ESPN. So CBS and Fox had renegotiated the contracts. They're out. They're good. They're fine. They're sitting pretty. They're whatever. So Disney, which has ESPN and ABC, they're dragging their feet around contract negotiations. And the NFL says, hey, Disney, you may want to sign this contract for Sunday and Monday night games because we got somebody else coming in the wings here ready to pounce on this. And Disney's like, we'll get there, whatever. Because looking at the landscape, they're not going to cable and they're not going to NBC because NBC's in shambles right now, and we'll get to that in a minute, but the NFL had an offer for Monday night and Sunday night games, and Disney passed it, basically. So the next year, Disney came back to the table to get the NFL, and lo and behold, there was the other player in the game, and this was, in fact, NBC. Now, you got to remember, back in 2005, Friends was gone. It was done.
Right.
ER was pretty much over. There was no more must-see Thursday night TV. Like, they were in shambles. Out of the top 20 programs that year in 2005, NBC appeared twice. Once with Deal or No Deal, and with Special Victims Unit Law and Order. The top show. This is the shows that were on the air in 2005. Just think to yourself, and think past. This is well before satellite. So this is cable. This is Blockbuster is still open for the most part. Netflix is really just getting going. They've got the discs and stuff they're sending to you. Hey Rory, we actually used to send you discs in the mail rather than streaming. Just FYI there. But these are the programs: American Idol, CSI, Desperate Housewives, Grey's Anatomy, House, Survivor, 2.5 Men. These shows were all in their heyday, so these shows were huge. NBC was getting trounced in the ratings. So they're coming to the table, putting forth a ton of money for football, because they had this guy named Dick Ebersol. Dick Ebersol, now you may not know that name, but anybody who knows anything about television and history, Dick Ebersol is a legend in New York network sports. He's like a Marty Sklar to Disney. Maybe outsiders don't know who Marty Sklar is, but people on the inside were like, oh my gosh, Dick Ebersol. And they're like, we're not worthy. It was just huge. So Bob Iger really wasn't paying much attention at the NFL at the time because he's taking over for Eisner. This is that transition period. Eisner's out. Iger's in. He's trying to get his stuff together. But Ebersol had spent months calling NFL team owners, trying to get support for the Sunday night games to NBC. They ended up getting the rights to it. Not only that, they got 2 playoff games, they got Super Bowls, they have a schedule where it was flexed. They could pick the games they wanted. They're really good games. So on the schedule, if they're like, oh, we got 2 crappy teams playing, let's move them to 12 o'clock and get these 2 other teams, whatever. Disney finally comes to the table. They sign the contract. Their contract is terrible. They don't get any playoff games. They get no Super Bowls, and they get no flex. So whatever they get, they get. All right, so that's what's happening with the football. Cut to Al Michaels and John Madden, okay? They're legendary sports figures. John Madden, of course, he's just recently passed, like a month or 2 ago. He was a Super Bowl winning coach of the 80s. He's the name behind this gazillion-dollar Madden football video game franchise. When you hear Madden 95 or Madden 2002, whatever, that's Madden. Great play-by-play announcer. He's like the #1 announcer on TV right now. Al Michaels, he's the legendary voice of, do you believe in miracles? Yes! That guy, Miracle on Ice. Yeah. He's got an incredible history of sports events that he's done and everything. So they have no idea what's happening to them. So John Madden calls Al Michaels, and then he's upset because he doesn't like what's happening right now because Disney has signed the contract. They're moving Monday Night Football to ESPN off of ABC. Mm-hmm. Now, nobody's liking this move except for the executives because really for ESPN, it's like, we're going to move over there. That means we can tell cable companies, hey, you have to pay us more now because now we have football on Monday nights. And so it's a cable thing, whatever. John Madden does not like ESPN because the higher-ups at ESPN, they want to go younger. So eventually they want to push John Madden out. And John Madden's like, I'm not getting pushed out. I'm John Madden. And that's not how I'm going out. So he's already talking to NBC by getting out of the contract. So in 2005, John Madden moves to NBC. Now Michaels is in a limbo. So his partner is gone. All these new production guys have come in. And NBC is basically signing over the production. And you're somebody who's done a lot of performances in church. Mm-hmm. You know who you're working with. If you came one Sunday morning and all of a sudden a whole bunch of new people came in to do your production that you had no idea who they were, they may be nice people. If you'd be like, I don't know you guys. We don't
like. I don't know how to.
I don't know what to tell you. Blah 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 blah. So Ebersol's basically talking to Al Michaels and trying to get him to come over because NBC doesn't have a ton of money to give them because they paid like billions of dollars for NFL football. So Al's gonna have to pay a cut, and he's like, "Well, I don't know that I want to do this. Let me think on it." ESPN gets wind of it. They call Al. And they say, "Hey Al, we hear you're talking to NBC. I know you're on vacation right now. You got 48 hours to make a decision. 48 hours." So Al's like, okay, so I'm going to stay at NBC right now. I'm just going to stay there, and we'll just see what happens. So he's like, but he's thinking, okay, so the test is going to be the schedule because I don't want to call – I'm Al Michaels. I don't want to call crappy games. Jen, you're a travel agent. You don't want to be booking trips to Six Flags. You book trips to all-inclusive, to Disney World. You're prime time here. You've been doing this a long time. He's like, I'm not doing this. So the whole thing is I look at the schedule. He gets the schedule, and he realizes that the Super Bowl champ, which is Pittsburgh, is going to be on Monday Night Football with ESPN one time. NBC has them 3 times, all in prime time, and Al's like, I'm out. I'm done, whatever. So NBC wants to come in and sign them, but there's this whole credibility thing, trying to get out of his contract, that kind of thing. So this is where the story takes 2 different directions. There's 2 different ways the story goes. So George Bodenheimer, who is the head honcho at ESPN, calls Bob Iger and says, we want Al Michaels. What do we got to do to get to Al Michaels? What do we need to get to him? Bob Iger says, okay, here's what we're going to do, George. I'm going to let Al Michaels go to you if you can get us the rights to Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. And George Bodenheimer says, who or what is Oswald the Lucky Rabbit? What the heck are you talking about? Now, of course, Iger has come into Disney, and he's been a part of Disney for a while, so he knows that the fans are like, why does Universal, because NBC is owned by Universal.
Yes.
Why did Universal have Oswald? This would basically be like Disney owning the rights to, I don't know, Shrek, or owning the rights to Dr. Seuss or whatever. I mean, maybe not like prevalent right now, but still a legendary figure in this history. And so, they're like, we want him back. We want him back. So for those of you who don't know, in 1928, Walt Disney went to New York to visit Charles Muntz, who worked with Universal and worked with the company there to work and kind of set up an animation company. Unbeknownst to Walt, Muntz has already contacted all of Walt's animators, has signed most of them out from under his nose, has taken the rights to all of his characters, including Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, which was a massive character in the 20s.
Yes.
Walt goes home. It's the infamous train robbery. He goes home with Lillian, and he designs this mouse, and he wants to call him Mortimer, and Lillian's like, that's a dumb name. What about Mickey? And something happened with the grass. I don't really know. But for all this time, Universal has had the rights to Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, which is this historical figure. So Iger says, okay, George, it goes back to the beginning of Walt Disney's career. Oswald is beloved by Disney. We want to get him back. They call Dick Ebersol. And they say, I'm willing to talk to you about letting Al go to NBC, but I got to have Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. And Dick Ebersol goes, who or what is Oswald the Lucky Rabbit? So they explain again. And so basically, they get Oswald. So they trade Al Michaels, this legendary sports figure, for Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. That's how Disney got Oswald back. Now, the other side of the story, the other side of the story is not quite as romantic. If you go to Al Michaels and talk to him, he's got a great book called You Can't Make This Stuff Up. It is an incredible memoir about his history and goes through all the different sporting events he's had to cover, some of the things he's had to do. From his end, he basically has said that the deal was 99% done regardless. But the press was already hounding in on Al's breaking his contract. NBC is being underhanded. What's ESPN doing? Blah, blah, blah. And somebody came up with the idea of, what if we throw Oswald the Lucky Rabbit in the deal? The press is going to focus on that and not so much the negativity. Let's throw them in there as a public relations ploy. So they threw him in there, and so that's what everybody turned to. The press immediately went to, Al Michaels is being traded for Oswald the Lucky Rabbit? What? Nobody paying any attention to the backwards deals of like contracts being broken and deals being broken and everything like that. So those are the two conflicting stories. I kind of believe it's kind of a mix in the middle. I think the deal probably was done. Al would have gone anyway, but I do believe that George called Bob Iger and was like, who is Oswald the Lucky Rabbit? So that's the story of how Disney gained Oswald the Lucky Rabbit back from Universal.
I love it.
There you go, folks. Now, going to the universe actually, is Jenn, who will be boarding the Galactic Star Cruiser, the Hyperion, and taking flight and also visiting Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and back to Black Spire Empire, Black Spire Outpost at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge in Hollywood Studios. There's 54 names here. Seriously. For all the things that Disney can't come up with Lightning Lane, just calling it Fastpass, I don't know why they have to assign 17 different names to Star Wars stuff.
I mean, it's fine.
But you'll be taking adventure down to Hollywood Studios to Galaxy's Edge as well, boarding the Star Cruiser transport. Those of you on video see me making air quotes, which will be a lot of fun. So I'm really looking forward to hearing all of that. And I don't know, I'm assuming you're allowed to take pictures and post while you're there? I know because the embargo is over.
The embargo's over, and that was just for like the influencers or whatnot. And so now, stuff is out there. Right. So. Yep.
Which is good. So we look forward to the pictures. Jenn, where can people find all those pictures?
They will be able to find it at Upon a Star Jen and my personal Instagram at Jen_Novotny.
Perfect. For those of you who are following Jenn but also want to see stuff besides Star Wars, you can follow me at The Magic on a Dollar on Instagram, and of course, Magic on a Dollar and Disney Dollar on Facebook. Next week, folks, I'm really excited about this. Sometime next week, we're going to start the 9th annual Favorite Disney Movie Madness Tournament. Every year, this goes on all my pages for the month of March. You vote on your favorite movies. We grind all the way down to our favorite film, Disney film of all time. Last year was Tangled. Beauty and the Beast has won it 3 times. Mary Poppins has been a champion. Lion King's been a champion. Mermaid has been a champion. So you get to vote, folks, on your favorite movies, and they're all in there. Everything from Flight of the Navigator to Moana to the Santa Claus, which, by the way, the Santa Claus always had a good showing. It's made like the Elite 8 before, which is in the Enchanting 8 is what I call it before. It's a great movie. You get to vote on your favorite Disney movie of all time. So make sure you follow all my pages because I give away prizes every year. I usually give away a $50 gift card at the end of the whole thing from one lucky person who gets to go. And so yeah, definitely follow the pages there. Of course, follow the show, the MSE Podcast at gmail.com. That is our email. We'd love to hear what stories you want to hear. What do you want to know more about? More history. Next time we do a Did You Know? What do you want to know? What do you want to hear? What questions do you have? Also follow us at the MSE Podcast on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. That's where you find all of our stuff. And we would love to hear from you. Make sure you go online, download the show, subscribe to the show, listen to the show. The numbers are creeping up. I love it. People, for whatever reason, folks, people love Jenn and I talking, just chatting away about Disney, and that's great. I heard from this morning, somebody messaged me, I was listening to your show this morning, and I'm like, you listen to the show? That's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
And they were like, yeah, so-and-so is also listening to the show too, and they have a question, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's even better. Thank you so much. That's fantastic. So thank you for listening. A couple of reminders, folks. The Galactic Star Cruiser does not go into space, as it said on Disney Frequently Asked Questions. Just so you know. Jenn will be back, of course, next week to regale us the fabulous stories of the Star Cruiser, the good and probably maybe some not quite as good, because we want to be honest.
We'll see. I will be honest, but I am excited. Yes. I am excited.
You should be excited. It's a really exciting thing. This thing's been years in the making, and there will be tips and tricks. When you get here, make sure you do this. When you get here, make sure you do that, or avoid that, whatever. Excited about hearing that. Also, Jenn, it's been 1,184 days since the train has run for the public in Walt Disney World. I want to make sure I point that out. We're getting there.
Sad.
Maybe.
Sadness.
Crossing our fingers. Guys, don't forget to thank your Phoenicians.
Thank you for listening to the Main Street Electrical Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at the MSE Podcast, or visit our website at themsepodcast.com. Be sure to subscribe, and may all your wishes come true.